Breaking right now, the final Hollywood humiliation for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle as Netflix reveals the couple, let's remember, paid an exorbitant seven-figure fee from the streaming giant, did not make the company's What We Watch list for the first half of 2024. Brittany, the editor of the Royal News Network, reports Harry and Meghan's future with Netflix is toast. I'm behind reporting on these numbers, but they reveal so much. When it comes to the couple's Live to Lead and Heart of Invictus, it appears that the two had such dismal numbers they didn't even make Netflix's What We Watch list for the first half of 2024. The threshold appears to be 100,000 views to make the list. To put that into perspective, there are over 6,800 shows that did better than 2 out of the 3 Archwell productions. In regard to Harry and Meghan, their reality TV show, the couple still managed a healthy 1.8 million views in the first half of 2024. Seems that trading off their private lives was the only thing that has resulted in some marginal success. Everything else has been a complete bomb. No wonder Harry is trying to force Canadian kids to watch Heart of Invictus. Otherwise, he can't really get anyone to watch. With results like that, it's no surprise that Netflix is reportedly not continuing their relationship with Harry and Meghan. They lack creative talent. And Brittany joins me now live from London today.
Yes.
Brittany, great to have you in the royal capital of the world. But goodness me, these numbers are disastrous.
I was so surprised when I looked because I had looked through these numbers before and they had shown up on other lists. And I was like, well, I'll look for the first half of 2024. I'd been kind of waiting for it, didn't really double check. And then I was able to sort of look and I was like, oh my gosh, I kept looking for it and looking for it. And I could not find it. I could not find it. And I was like, oh my gosh, they didn't make the list. They didn't make the list at all. And you look through and they show 6,800 shows, just a couple more than that. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're not on the list. It's crazy.
All right, folks, we need to talk about the biggest failure in Netflix history. And no, it's not some random forgotten TV show. It's Harry and Meghan's so-called groundbreaking projects that nobody actually watched. No, it looks like Netflix is about to cut them loose. Let me put this in perspective for you. Netflix's What We Watched list tracks the top 6,800 shows in the first half of 2024. Harry and Meghan's projects didn't even make the cut. That means they had less than 100,000 views. Meanwhile, their reality-style drama got 1.8 million views, but guess what? That's still considered a flop by Netflix standards. Translation: when they're not spilling royal secrets or playing the victim, nobody cares. No wonder Netflix is done with them. Their $100 million deal is looking like one of the biggest mistakes in streaming history. They promised groundbreaking content and delivered absolutely nothing. And if that wasn't bad enough, now even Hollywood insiders are calling Meghan out, and they are not holding back.
This is now, without any doubt, Brittany, the biggest commercial disaster in the history of streaming television. Because the problem is the expectations were so high, given the ludicrous fee connected to the deal, and there has just been no delivery, not even a moderate hit. Because as you say, the whole thing about Harry and Meghan, that was just a continuation of the Oprah Winfrey interview. It was just them slagging off their family. There was no creativity connected to that. There was no production from Archwell connected to that.
Exactly. And it was something where they were trading off the British royal family, really. That's what made Harry and Meghan, the initial show, successful, is the British royals. It wasn't necessarily them and their story. It was them as a part of a greater narrative about the most famous family in the world. So, of course, people are going to watch that. But when it comes to anything beyond that, it just became this big mess that nobody really wanted to watch. Live to Lead looked absolutely dull. It looked like something you could fall asleep to. And then you have Heart of Invictus, which had some great moments, but it also was slow. It lagged. It sort of meandered at times. It just wasn't even a good documentary. And they have a show apparently they're going to do at some point, maybe or something. But it really looks like there's no real future for them with Netflix at this point.
What about the fact that Meghan has engineered this personal friendship with Ted Sarandos, the co-chief executive of Netflix, with his wife? Do you think that has been done strategically? She is also mixed race, I believe. They attended the Beyonce concert together. Has that been done for Meghan to try and keep some sort of deal?
I mean, it could be, but at the end of the day, you have to remember Hollywood is really a numbers game. They're looking for hits, they're looking for revenue. And then when it comes to Harry and Meghan, clearly, yes, they have one thing that does really well. It's trading off their names and trading off their royal titles. That's basically it. When it comes to anything beyond that, they're not really creatives. They don't seem to have sort of any solid work ethic. And Hollywood at this point is completely changing how it's functioning. It's lost, I think some of the estimates are like 40% of the business has left Hollywood. Actually, a lot of it is moving to the UK because your guys' tax laws are so much better than what they're getting in California. And some of the regulations aren't as harsh as they are in California. So they're moving here. They're moving to other production houses. And so Harry and Meghan, like they're in a dying industry in some ways. Like this has been a sort of a big discussion as the sort of collapse of Hollywood due to a variety of different factors. But Harry and Meghan, they could have had a great future there, but even with cozying up to the boss, sure, that might be helpful. And I think it was technically the wife of the Paramount boss, but the Paramount company, like all the studios are in the red pretty much this year and beyond. They've been totally in the red. So beyond that, there's just not much to sort of look forward to. Harry and Meghan just don't have anything to offer, quite frankly. And they're not willing to go down the Kardashian route, which I think is what Netflix wanted in the first place. And they're just not willing to do it, which makes sense. But at the same time, that's all they really have. They're not creatives. They're just clearly not creatives.
Look, I'm not a psychologist, but when multiple people, including media figures who once supported you, start saying you're cold-blooded, ruthless, and sociopathic, maybe, just maybe, they're onto something. And let's be real, this is a pattern. Meghan has cut off her father, her sister, most of her friends from before she met Harry, and even the royal family. Now, she's burning bridges in Hollywood too. At some point you have to ask, who's the common denominator? This is why Meghan's new lifestyle brand won't work. You can't sell an aspirational brand when people don't aspire to be you. And when even Hollywood insiders are calling you cold-blooded, that's a death sentence for your image.
The thing is that they are effectively making, though, a Kardashian-style show with Polo, but they're not in it. So I think Meghan would have done the Kardashian thing in a flash. It's Harry who has always been slightly reluctant to do that. But what's fascinating, Brittany, is we just see Harry and Meghan getting absolutely destroyed by Americans now on a weekly basis. Actually, what's fascinating, Brittany, much, much more harshly than any coverage they received while they were in the UK. So as according to Taz pointed out, Meghan getting roasted by Americans seems so much more brutal than any negative coverage she got in the UK. And of course, they don't speak out against the American coverage, do they? Because it didn't fit their narrative, which was all about the terrible, horrible British tabloid newspaper being out to destroy them. But I want to show you this interview because it is with Douglas Brunt. He's a great guy, actually. He is the husband of Meghan Kelly, who has launched his own podcast, but he's just as smart, just as quick. And this is a really great interview with Maureen Dowd from the Daily Mail. And they're talking about Meghan and Harry in, as Taz says, a brutal manner that you wouldn't receive in the UK. So Maureen Callahan there from the Daily Mail with Doug Brunt. And sociopathic and cold-blooded Brittany. Do you agree?
I mean, it's hard to deny, really. Like when you look at how she's just dropped family and friends, longtime friends, family, it's just sort of hard to wrap your head around. And Americans, we love our friends, we love our family. We're very much about being together and supporting each other. So I think it rubs a lot of people the wrong way, how she's treated her father, especially because, yeah, like Maureen said, he didn't do some things that were super great, but were they all that bad? I mean, she herself has arranged paparazzi strolls
Yeah, I
and
don't
tried
think
to
there's
sell the
anything
pictures.
wrong with what he
And so
did.
I'm like,
He was left with no support. He wanted to have control of his imaging. And as you say, this was the woman that used to book paparazzis to follow her around London all the time. So what a hypocrite.
exactly. And you think of Jessica Mulroney, her at one point best friend who sat in the front row at St. George's Chapel in Windsor for her wedding. Her two boys held Meghan's veil, and she just cut her off as if she meant nothing. And I think
Cancelled because what?
exactly.
She didn't fit into her woke narrative anymore because she was
Yeah.
cancelled by the woke mob. It is vile. This is not a woman who cares about anyone other than herself. She actually, if she was a good friend, she would have been there for Jessica Mulroney.
Exactly. And I don't think Jessica Mulroney's, whatever the kerfluffle was on social media was really all that bad. And it could have been a great
No.
coming together moment, and Meghan could have helped her. But instead, she just threw her to the wolves and was like, well, you made a mistake and you're, not my problem anymore. We're not friends anymore. And I just find that incredibly sad and incredibly cold. And you think, who are Meghan's friends? Because if this is what she does to friends and family, like, how do you hang out with somebody who's willing to drop you out a hat as soon as you're inconvenient to her? Because that's exactly it. Once you're inconvenient, once she can't use you, once you're maybe not, I think, worshiping her the way she wants you to, she'll just drop you because you're not worth her time. And I just think that for Americans, after a while, people sort of start to catch on to that at different levels. And they're like, well, people who do that generally they're not great people. And I think everybody sort of has that sense of that because I honestly can say most of the time when I meet people and I talk about Meghan, I rarely meet anybody who likes her or the public image that she portrays. And I think it's definitely reflected in their lack of numbers that they've achieved for Netflix. I mean, the ratio for Polo was really bad. I think it's last time I looked, it was like 8% likes or something because people don't like them. And that's a huge problem for their brand going forwards because they need people to buy their products. But if nobody likes them, nobody's going to buy it, especially for her. Because I think between the two, she's the least likable. And I think that's reflected always in the poll numbers.
Now here's where things get really interesting. With Hollywood rejecting them, does Harry want to go back to the royal family? Here's the reality. After all the damage he's done, why would the royals ever take him back? This is the same guy who trashed them on global TV, wrote a tell-all book and even took legal action against the UK government. And now that Hollywood is done with him, he's suddenly rethinking his choices? Give me a break. King Charles and Prince William aren't stupid. They know that the second they let Harry back in, Meghan will use it for more PR and another Netflix deal. And honestly, they're better off without him. The sad truth is Harry traded a life of duty and family for Hollywood fame, and now, he's got neither. And honestly, he did this to himself. This is what happens when you burn every bridge you cross.
Yeah. But Harry's just out. He's like, I can't be bothered making any of this money. It's a little bit hard. I want to talk about something that is unfortunately very predictable, but still really disgusting. Prince Harry now using Taylor Swift, it looks like, in the appeal that he's making about his security. Remember, can I just clarify, this is an appeal against his own father's government. Brittany, you write, well, Prince Harry could cite the police protection Taylor Swift received in his case, but that kind of proves the government's point. She got police protection only because of a credible terrorist threat in Austria. Prince Harry and his family are under the same protections. If there is a credible threat, he will get security. If not, he won't. It's that simple. That's the case then, now, and in the future. You almost get the sense he's so desperate to manifest some credible threat against his family somewhere to justify his delusions when nothing really exists. It's very concerning. And look, this was so predictable, wasn't it? It was so obvious that he was going to be so mad that Taylor Swift was protected. But as you point out, that was still a controversial decision here in the UK, Brittany. It was one that went right to the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, went right up to the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary, and they received criticism for it. But as you say, there had been a credible Islamist threat to bomb her concert in Vienna, Austria. And she was not going to come to the UK at all if she didn't receive that protection. Now, that would have cost the UK's economy £1 billion. In fact, if Prince Harry doesn't turn up, no one's bothered.
Exactly. If he shows up to the UK, nobody's going to make any money, really, except for maybe what he and Meghan attempt to. But Taylor Swift, she brings in a massive amount of money with her various concerts, and there was a credible threat. And you got to think as well, somebody mentioned this, I believe, on X in one of my comments, is that not only was there a threat in Austria, but you got to think 5 years ago or so at the Ariana Grande concert, there was a terrorist attack in Manchester, I believe it was. And dozens of people were killed. And so this is something where it becomes an actual threat to human life. And so because of that, you do need those sort of protections because it's a public safety issue at that point. And so you have to protect somebody within the broader public because it impacts other people. Now, Harry and Meghan, of course, they are under the same protections, basically. If they give the government, I believe it's 28 days notice, a threat assessment is done. If there is a credible threat, they do get a level of security. If there's not one, then they don't. And they have to utilize their own private security. And it makes sense. I just don't understand why I feel like Harry is just so desperate. And I almost find it a little scary. I think he so wants this credible threat to become a reality that he's trying to manifest it. I'm like, why? You should be thankful your family is mostly safe 9/10 of the time or 99.9% of the time. Why are you so focused on what might happen? I just find it very strange and very disconcerting because there are real threats, but those I think are not as grave as he might believe in his mind. I think he's very much filled with delusion on this issue.
Of course he is.
Meghan and Harry thought they could ditch the royal family and become Hollywood superstars. But here's what they didn't realize. Hollywood is just as ruthless as the palace. And when you stop being useful, they drop you. Netflix isn't renewing their deal. Spotify canceled them after one podcast. Even Oprah, yes, Oprah, is distancing herself. That's all you need to know. Their approval ratings? In free fall. Their business deals? Drying up. Their Hollywood connections? Gone. This isn't just a PR crisis. This is a total collapse of their influence. So here's the million-dollar question. Can they recover? Can Meghan rebrand herself? Can Harry salvage what's left of his reputation? Honestly, at this point it's looking unlikely. They've burned too many bridges, lost too much credibility, and failed at every major project they've taken on. If they don't find a way to reinvent themselves fast, they're going to fade into irrelevance. And let's be real, that's the last thing Meghan wants. Alright folks, that's it for today. If you liked this breakdown, smash that like button, subscribe for more, and drop a comment below. Is this the end of the Sussexes' Hollywood dream? Or do you think they still have a chance? Let me know your thoughts below.